said. Drownings are common in the waters of Djibouti as the migrants make their journeys. Tanja Pacifico, the head of its Djiboutian office, said Tuesday's death toll had risen from an earlier figure of 16 IOM had given. Another 33 people were rescued from the water, she said, adding that all they and the dead were Ethiopians. What is exceptional is that we had another shipwreck with 38 Ethiopian nationals just less than 2 weeks ago, Pacifico said. At least 38 people, including children, died in the shipwreck of the Djibouti coast. She said Tuesday's capsized boat was sailing to Djibouti from Yemen. These numbers have been increasing over the past few months. Pacifico said achieved only humiliation and defeat with its offensive. Speaking in a video, Abu Obaida, the spokesperson for Hamas's armed wing, called for an escalation in conflict across all fronts and praised Iran for its first direct attack against Israel earlier this month. He also said Hamas was sticking to its demands in ceasefire talks for Israel to permanently end its war, put all its troops from Gaza, and allow the displaced to return to the north. Israel has resisted a permanent Hamas to regroup. Israel is poised to send troops into Rafah, the Gazan city it sees as the last bastion of Hamas. Israeli media reported on Wednesday, saying preparations were underway to evacuate war-displaced Palestinian civilians who have been sheltering there. The Rafah sweep, postponed for several weeks amid disputes with Washington, will happen very soon. The mass circulation Israel said, citing a decision by the Israeli government after ceasefire talks with Hamas stalled. Several other Israeli media outlets carried similar reports. Saudi has ruled out any influx of refugees into Egyptian Sinai. Israel under pressure, given the war spiraling humanitarian militant groups, retreating fighters. Victory in the Gaza war, launched after Hamas's October 7 attack in southern Israel, would be impossible without taking Rafah, crushing Hamas and recovering any hostages which might be held there, the Netanyahu. In a speech on Tuesday, marking the 200-year day of the war, Hamas armed, as well as rampages by violent Jewish settlers and street attacks by Palestinians on Israelis. The dead man camp just outside Jericho, where local residents said youths threw stone at the soldiers and there was a limited exchange of fire. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in clashes with Israeli forces since the start of the war in Gaza. Last October, most have been armed militants, but stone-throwing youths and uninvolved civilians have also been killed. Israel has taken significant steps in recent weeks on allowing aid into Gaza, the U.S. Special Envoy for Humanitarian Issues said on Tuesday, but considerable work remains to be done as the risk of famine in the enclave is very high. David Satterfield declined to say whether Washington was satisfied by Israel's moves weeks after U.S. President Joe Biden demanded action to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, saying conditions could be placed on U.S. support for close ally Israel if it did not implement a series of specific concrete and measurable steps. Israel has taken for a disease outbreak as the warmer weather approaches. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk said on Tuesday he was horrified by the destruction of Nasser and Al-Shifa Medical Hospital in Gaza and reports of mass graves containing hundreds of bodies there, according to a spokesperson. Palestinian authorities reported finding hundreds of bodies in mass graves at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis this week after it was abandoned by Israeli troops. Bodies were also reported. The military said claims by Palestinian authorities that the Israeli Defense Forces had buried bodies and baseless and unfounded. It said forces searching for Israeli hostages had examined bodies previously buried by Palestinians near Nasser Hospital and had returned the bodies to where they were buried after they were examined. The examination was conducted in a careful manner and exclusively in places where intelligence indicated the possible presence of hostages. The examination was carried out respectfully while maintaining the dignity of the deceased, it said in a statement. Ravina Shamdasani, the spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said the rights organization was raising the alarm because multiple bodies had been discovered. Turk said he had been horrified by the reported mass grave discoveries and the hospital's destruction. She said some of them had their hands tied, which of course indicates serious violence in the region this year, starting with live fire drills conducted with the South Korean puppet military. Gangsters are driving the regional security environment power to safeguard our sovereignty, security, and regional peace. The U.S. and South Korean militaries have been conducting a range of drills with greater scale and intensity in recent months under a pledge by the two countries' leaders to upgrade